I felt like I had to feed my family a certain thing, and I wanted to do it myself so that it wasn't greenwashed and there wasn't corners cut. I was becoming really passionate about animal welfare, and I wanted to see what that was like, and I wanted to see, what I could do in that space.
That was Jake Wolki, and you're listening to The Regenerative Journey. From wherever we are, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia, recognising their continuing connection to this land, its waterways, the stars in the skies since time immemorial. We pay our respects to the elders, knowledge holders, and to all the generations of First Nations peoples who have nurtured their unceded sovereign lands for over 80,000 years and continue to do so today.
G'day, I'm your host Charlie Arnott, an 8th generational Australian regenerative farmer. And in this podcast series, I'll be diving deep and exploring my guests' unique perspectives on the world so you can apply their experience and knowledge to cultivate your own transition to a more regenerative way of life.
Welcome to The Regenerative Journey with your host Charlie Arnott.
G'day and welcome back to the Regenerative Journey. You'll find me in a hotel room in Bondi, and you might even hear some people walking down the corridor. Lily is in the room, but she's being very quiet, and we are in Sydney for the weekend, so I just needed to punch out a bit of podcast action, and here we are. So if you hear some rumbling outside or kids in the corridor, then please excuse me. Now this week on the Regenerative Journey, the interview I have done is with Jake Wolki of Wolki Farms down there at Albury. I'll get to him in a minute, but just a quick one. I just wanted to I just got to find it here on my phone now. I did a bit of a call out a little while ago about I was really keen to see or understand, hear of anyone who had experiences through listening to the Regenerative Journey of then, I'm bouncing on the bed there, through the Regenerative Journey podcasts and episodes and guests having been inspired to do things on the back of that and how that might have changed their life. So Fraser Pogue from North Victoria there, he's actually featured in him and his family and his farm there in the movie 2040, Damon Gamo's awesome movie from a couple of years ago. Good Dirt is their business and their Instagram handle and all that sort of stuff, and they're growing some amazing food. One of them is actually a popcorn that pops on the cob. So they're very real entrepreneurs and doing amazing things with his farm in a regenerative practices. But, I was very grateful that Fraser got in touch with me and he said, just responding to your podcast I heard yesterday, I spoke with you a while ago about our organic popcorn on the cob. Organic, I didn't mention that before, but it is organic. Anyway, I think your podcast is great and it has actually resulted in some action on the ground. After listening to your podcast with Jason Cotter, I decided to cold call him and have a chat. So Jason at Toorong Farm down there in Mornington Peninsula in Victoria grows heirloom, heritage, ancient grains and that sort of thing. And he actually won, I think he won the Australian Delicious Award, like as a national award for from the paddock. I think I'm right in saying that. I hope, Jason, I'm not putting you on the spot there, but amazing stuff. Lovely bloke and such a good yarn. So I can't remember what episode that is, but check it out. Anyway, Fraser got in touch with him. We got along great, and I'm now growing some organic wheat for him. Awesome. We have some other ideas in the pipeline on how to work together. Also, after the Our Cow episode with Dave and Bianca, I decided to send them a box of our popcorn, no strings attached. They are now stocking it on their website. Would love to chat further at any stage if you're interested. Cheers, Fraser. That is awesome. They're the sort of stories I hear. I hear them sort of on grapevines. I bump into people and I hear it. So really lovely to have that to share with you. And look, it is pumping my tyres up a tad, but not for any other purpose than to sort of highlight, I guess for me and maybe for you guys as well, that the impact of this podcast and lots of other podcasts that are, this is the whole idea, isn't it? That you listen, you learn, you pick bits, you drop bits out, you just take on board what you want. And if it does indeed result in changes in practice, philosophy, behaviours, habits, whatever it is, I just think that's a wonderful thing. I'm really honoured that people think enough about the website, the podcast to listen in the first place. So thank you listening to this now. I think the guests are worthy of hanging in there and listening, and then inspiring enough to take action, which is awesome. Really good. Talking about taking action, one bloke who is good at taking action is Jake Wolki of Wolki Farms down there in Albury. He has Wolki Farm. He has Wolki Farm shop. It's in town. It's just sort of attached to their family's bicycle shop, massive bicycle shop there. And he is just a dynamo. He's got his chickens and his meat birds and his egg birds. He's got beef. He's got pork. He's got all sorts of wonderful things. He's growing some veg too there from memory. It was a few months ago I did the interview. But what a dynamo. And he's in Goonies, yeah, sort of big. He's good mates with Anthony Chaffee and who else there? Max Culhane, who's down that part of the world as well. Pran Yaganathon, he did a gig down there a few months ago, which I sadly missed, but he's really great on social media. He's doing some really good things in supplying nutrient-dense food to people locally. His butcher shop's quite unique in that you become a member, and it's no one's in there. You go in there, you got your code, you do your biz, grab your meat, off you go, pay for it, and bingo, you're done. And that's a really bloody smart idea, I think, because he didn't want to let sort of the cost of labour and sort of any other hurdle get in the way of supplying good quality meat. We're talking food meters, food miles, very close and handy. So I just fantastic. Sat with him quite late in the day, actually. It was getting dark. It was getting quite dark. But look, that's now. That's the next one. That's the one you're going to tune into right now. Jake Wolki Farms down there at Albury, on the regenerative journey right now. Enjoy. Jake. Hello.
Hello.
Jake, welcome to the regenerative journey, and welcome to is this the back or the front? It's like the back veranda, isn't it?
This is the back veranda.
Back veranda of Mum and Dad's place. The land surrounding of which you are leasing.
That's right.
And we're looking out at some activity. A car looks like it's about to get bogged. No. Some other people. Tell us what we're looking at. And hello.
So we've got my father chasing one of the hunting dogs because it was assaulting
that's Terry in the car.
Yeah, the dog was assaulting my new pullets, and that's my sister and her friend who were trying to help and couldn't catch the dog. Apart from that, it's a very peaceful place.
Oh, it's amazing because we went. Your mother very kindly arranged another room out the front of the house, which was nice and cosy and good ambience. Well, the acoustics were good, but we've come out the back because we're looking out at a fair part of the farm, aren't we? You can see a fair bit of it from here.
You can see just about everything. She's made me tuck all the eyesore stuff out of the back of the house view, the brooding shed and, the pile of scrap and all that stuff, and the compost heaps around that side. Yeah, this is the Christmas view when we have Christmas lunch out here with the family.
This is beautiful. Pretty wet. You've had a bit of rain, yeah?
Heaps of rain. I've had to put it in our grazing plan that we can't have cattle out the back here the month before Christmas, otherwise the flies upset Mum's Christmas celebrations.
Poo everywhere.
Yeah.
And so why don't you... Here comes that cat again. Why don't you give us a bit of... I always start my interviews with, hoping I snag my guests in their happy place. This looks like a pretty happy place, and it's certainly the farm on which, or one of them that you're doing your amazing work on. So let's start with, how does it feel? What does it mean to you to be sitting here looking at, what looks like a fair bit of hard work? You've got help here and there by the look of it. But
it's actually really interesting looking at this because I don't often get to see this view at this time of day for this amount of time. Like normally this time in the afternoon, I'm heading into town to go do family life. Because we live in town.
So you've knocked off by now, kind of thing?
Yep. Normally I'm heading home and go visit the wife and the kids and check on everyone. So I get to see all this in the morning, but not normally in the evening.
And do you feel guilty?
About what?
About sitting here looking at it?
No, not at all.
No.
I just don't often take time to sit down. It's not a guilt thing. It's
Well, tell us what we're seeing here, because you gave us a bit of a rundown of it. And actually, this is the spot because we can actually see it, be inspired by it. You can talk us through tell us what happens here at Wolki Farm. You're a fair bit.
Well, what's in our view at the moment is we've got our little mob of ewes here. These are our maiden ewes. There's about 70 of them. They're a composite called Catalyst, and they've just started lambing. So we've got about a dozen lambs on the ground.
The view back to keep going.
And they're just in their little cell there. And then to the south of it, you've got our new prairie schooner, which is a big hoop house on skids. It's essentially a greenhouse that's on big metal skids, and that has 700 broilers inside of it. They're a meat bird that gets dragged along every day. One of my eggmobiles, which has 300 laying hens in it. I've got 3 eggmobiles. Behind the eggmobile, you can't see it from here because they're camouflaged well, but there's one of my little groups of pigs, pastured pigs. And then to the south, that we can't see it from here, but I've got one of my mobs of cattle. My beehives are down there too. I've got about 20 beehives. There's more pigs on the other side. And both my other lease blocks just have cattle on them at the moment. We've kept all the intensive stuff here.
Because this is the main sort of focus.
It's the closest.
It makes sense to have it all.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. And tell me why are you doing it?
I've been on a health journey, Charlie. I have never been a super healthy person historically. Lots of rashes and allergies and all sorts of things. And I just went through the system as you do. Dad used to come in and when I was a little kid and peel the sheets off my legs in the morning because I'd scratch my legs in my sleep and then my legs would bleed and the sheets would stick to my legs. So it used to be this ritual, Dad to come in and peel the sheets off my leg and put betadine on me and wrap me up and send me to school. And I've been allergic to everything you can think of. I'm allergic to grass, dust, cats. So we've got a good trifecta going on here right now. I used to go to Melbourne for the desensitization injections. And one day I went to the doctor, my local GP, this is about 4 or 5 years ago, and I just said to her, I'm fed up. I've had enough. I can't handle these allergies and the impact on my quality of life anymore. And I've got a few different businesses in town and all my family's in town. And I said to her, if you don't fix me, I'm going to sell the whole lot and move to the coast, because I've always realised that I feel a little bit better when I'm next to that ocean breeze. And I said, I want the steroid shot. She goes, I'm not going to give you steroids. You're too young and fit and healthy. And I said, there's nothing fit and healthy about me. Give me the stinking shot.
What age were you?
Oh, geez, I must have been 27. And to her credit, she didn't give it to me. I'm eternally thankful in retrospect that I didn't get it. But she upped my scripts. So at that time, I was on a script, nose spray, eye drop, and tablet, all for my allergies. And I went straight out to the chemist and cashed my scripts. And before I'd left the store, I'd taken a double dose up each nostril of my nasal spray. And just as I walked out of the store, my nose started bleeding as if someone had turned a tap on all down my shirt, just gushing out of my face. And I'm thinking, this is no better than the stinking allergy itself. So we went, my wife, who's a lot more astute and in tune with her health and surroundings than I am, took me on a bit of a journey. And we ended up going down the whole foods, organic foods path. And I was really, I guess once I went down that rabbit hole, I was really dogmatic about the food that I wanted. I wanted grass-fed and finished. I wanted it from animals that had been in holistic systems, that hadn't been medicated and drenched in things. And I went to the farmers markets and I couldn't find, precisely what I wanted. All of them were sort of doing something that, to my sort of naive understanding, still didn't suit what I wanted. And Mum and Dad have this 45 hectares here. And I said, can I put a couple cows, put some chickens in a caravan? So I bought about 16 chickens and put them in a caravan. It wasn't renovated, like just a full caravan. I broke a bale of hay in the bottom and tech screwed some milk crates to the wall. And I started moving cows around and chasing them with chooks just because I wanted the beef and the eggs for myself as a part of our food healing journey at home.
And how long ago was this? Just
2019.
Okay, not that long ago. 2023 now, 4 years.
Yep.
Actually, I met you in 2019.
Yeah, we met at the worm farm.
Yeah, the Nutrisoil there. Yeah,
I think that weekend.
It was May 2019.
You had your first podcast recorded at that event, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, first two actually.
Yep.
Martin Royds and Joel Sullivan. Yeah, so okay. There's a nice little place marker, and so chickens and cattle. You were dead set gonna get yourself some homegrown meat.
Yep, we want a grass-fed beef from the block, with out of organic pastures, and we wanted some good quality eggs, and that's where we started. And if you're going to move one cow every day, it's just as easy, or even easier, I'd argue, to move 20 cows every day. So we got a little mob and started moving them around, and some people wanted to start buying it off me. So I just thought this is a good little hustle.
Did you advertise, or you just...
Well, I document every part of my life, every moment of my life's documented on social. I overshare.
So people saw, hang on, he's got cows, we could eat them.
Good-looking cows. They were some beautiful Hereford heifers. They're really nice. Yeah, and I went to the local butcher and got one cut up, and he said, that's pretty good beef. And then I bought some pigs, put them in the front paddock, didn't rotate them or anything.
That was all here?
Yeah. That was near the dam. Back then, 4 years ago, they were sleeping in the dam all day and smashing the whole paddock, and I was feeding them swill. I didn't know you weren't meant to. Like, it was, it was doing everything wrong.
We're not meant to from a legal point of view.
Yeah. Yep.
It's pig food. It's certified organic.
I wish I could feed them
fresh pig food. Well, yes. I guess if you're selling it, is that a rule? Is it?
It's illegal to feed pigs swill in Australia, whether it's for commercial production or not. It's a foot and mouth thing.
What constitutes swill?
Swill is animal products, so like meat, dairy, cheese, eggs. So swill is those products or any vegetable product that's been in contact with it. So if you chopped up some chicken breast on a chopping board and then chopped up a lettuce on that chopping board, that lettuce is now contaminated. You can't give it to your pigs.
And that's what, foot and mouth?
Yeah, they're worried about disease outbreaks from the pigs eating animal matter.
Are they worried about that, or is that just an excuse to...
Well, that's what they say. It's one of the reasons that all the imported pork's boneless as well. All the imported pork products. You wonder why a place like Australia has to import pork, but they bring in rolled roasts boneless because they're allegedly worried about diseases in the marrow and
that might be in the bone, in the marrow.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning. Let's go back in time so that we'll get back to that spot in 2019 and then beyond. But where'd you start your life?
So I was born here in Albury. In 1990, Mum and Dad had a bricks and mortar retail store. My paternal grandfather, came to Australia about 65 years ago from Germany as a toolmaker, tradesman.
Yeah,
he was 20 years old.
Those Germans would make good tools, aren't they?
Yeah, he was a good tradesman, I believe. Anyway, not that I've seen him in action, but I've seen him fix things around the house, and he's a clever fellow. So he landed in Adelaide and went through a bunch of different jobs, like a serious number, something like 60 jobs in 3 years. He was hot-headed and he'd crack the sads and walk out, and ended up doing a few different things. But anyway, came to Albury and took over a fast food chicken shop called Bird's Nest Barbecue Chicken. And that's what brought the family to the area. So I was born here. Mum and Dad had a retail gift store on Dean Street, which is the main street of Albury, selling denim jeans and basketball cards and dream catchers and wigs, it was a real eclectic mix of things. And then Dad purchased a record store selling CDs and DVDs, and Mum kept running the gift shop. I left school. Dad tried to get me to leave school in year 9. He wanted to sign me out to go work for him. And I still remember sitting down talking to Mum and Dad about it, and Dad's like, Lee, he's not learning anything at school. You come with me and he can learn stuff on the job. And Mum wasn't really, I don't remember her being enormously put off at the thought of it, but I think it was more about keeping up appearances. Didn't want to be that person. So she's like, I think Jake should just finish year 10 and see how he goes. I don't even know if I did finish year 10, because as soon as teachers stopped asking me, are you coming in for tomorrow's exam, I just told Dad I was done and stopped going.
So you were still in year 9 or in year 10?
No, I was doing all the year 10 exams. I'm just not sure quite how that all wrapped. I was thinking about it the other day going, I don't even know if I finished. But then I went to work with my father in the record store for 4 years. And at that time, the record industry, I think I'd been in it for 2 years, and the record industry started crashing. remember a customer came in and said, do you have the new Arctic Monkeys album? And I looked it up and I said, oh, it's due in a month. We had a bit of a conversation about it, and they came in the next day and said, oh, that new Arctic Monkeys album's really good. I said, what do you mean? I just told you yesterday, it's a month away. They said, oh, I downloaded it last night. I said, how does that work? And they said, oh, you downloaded, I think it was LimeWire back then or something.
Yes, LimeWire, yeah.
So I downloaded whatever app it was in the torrent, and I downloaded the album, and I went out the back. Dad was sitting out the back paying bills or doing wages, and I said to Dad, we're stuffed. This album that's not due for a month and it's going to cost $35, I just downloaded in a minute for free. And my grandpa and uncle had another dozen record stores, and they were all in shopping centres, Centre Points and Westfields, and the family just got smoked by it. So Dad and I were lucky. They only had the one record store, so we were able to work the lease out. All the staff got sent home and said, sorry, we can't do anything there, and we were able to work the lease out, and the demographic of where we were, it probably saved us a little bit too. Older, ageing population that weren't as savvy to download.
Right, so there was a slower transition.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
And just before we closed the store, just before the lease was up, we purchased a bicycle shop in town.
Sorry, that's really loud, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is there an airport here?
We're right under the airport.
The Albury Airport.
ABX, yep.
Yeah, right. Oh, we're east. Are we pretty much, because that's pretty much east of town, isn't it?
Yeah, so airport's between us and town.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's probably like 3 kilometres just there.
Oh, it can't be far because that bloody plane was just...
You can feel it.
Yeah, Jesus. So back to you bought a...
Bicycle shop. And I bought into that with my parents. It was called Push Bikes. We purchased that in July 1st, 2011. We settled on that, and it went really well. I grew it. I sort of really took that. I stepped up a bit. And before then, I remember Dad used to get cross with me because I turn up to work late, or, I'd sleep in and miss my lift to work when I didn't have my license yet. And Dad was always writing me about all that stuff. But then when we purchased the bike shop and I had a bit of skin in the game, I stepped up and really started, trying my best and took a bit of ownership. And a couple of years into that, it was growing really well. And Mum and Dad purchased the bowling club, which was across the street, the old Windsor Park Bowling Club, which was derelict, and demolished that and built a new purpose-made building for our bike shop, which we moved into that building July 1st, 2014. That German background, we like to do things with the financial calendar. And we opened a cafe in there. So we've got a cafe that we run there as well so the bike shop got rebranded to Cycle Station. The cafe is called Cafe Musette. They're both 7-day-a-week businesses, and I still manage them for the family. Mum and Dad are both retired. And my staff took me off the roster. Must have been like late 2020, because they used to I'd come out here to collect eggs, and then I'd run behind time because, the cows got out or whatever it was. So I'd call the staff and go, could you please lock the shop for me? I'm not going to make it. And after a couple of months, they said, Jake, it's probably just easier if you're not on the roster at all at this stage. Go and play farmer.
Yep.
So I've been off the roster for a couple of years, and I've been doing more of this. And then the farming sort of started to get going. So my wife and I purchased a butchery in 2020, and to process our own protein.
Was it that? I didn't think it was that long ago.
We settled 3 years ago yesterday.
Yeah, well. We'll get back to that. So tell me, so life as Albury, your mum, you grew up here?
Yes.
No, yeah.
Mum and Dad purchased this place about 20 years ago and built, so I only lived here a couple of years before I went and got married and all that stuff.
So connection with farming animals, apart from
nothing.
I want eggs and beef at some point. Because you could have just maybe sourced some better eggs and beef, or I don't know, driven a bit further or got it online or something. But why? So not much touch point with farming before then?
No, so this block was all these 100-acre blocks, all the way down this street really are just glorified hobby blocks. Everyone's got horses. We used to have motorbikes and paddock bashes and build jumps and have bonfires and let firecrackers off. And
so lots of grass and not much else?
I remember Dad would get about 40 steers every year and move them. We got this farm's in 5 paddocks, and he'd move them from one paddock to the other till the feed started getting thin, and then he'd open the whole place up and let him have all of it, and that was the program. But we were never. I remember Dad used to ask me to help him get them in the yard so they could go on the sales truck, and I used to really piss and moan about it. I didn't want I wanted to stay inside and watch telly. I didn't want to go outside and chase cows. I was an Xbox kid.
So the motivation to get involved with the farm and get a bit serious was health.
And I think having kids, I started taking an interest in gardening a bit at home, and I'd rather raise cattle than carrots. Cows are easier. So I did a little bit of organic gardening at home with my boy and my firstborn, and I think having children really changes your perspective on a lot of things. And
Right.
I tell you what, it's great to bring the boys out here and chase chooks. And
So what about children changes your perspective?
I think
you've got two.
I've got two boys,
Right.
5 and 2, and
Yep.
my wife's due in 3 weeks with our third child.
What perspective changes?
Well, I think
as a parent?
you start becoming. Well, I started becoming a lot more deliberate about what I was doing with my time, because I was realizing that everything I did was an example. Every action you do, whether you intend it to be or not, is setting an example for your child. And instead of coming home from working a big day in the bike shop and cracking a beer and watching TV for the next 3 or 4 hours, I thought, like, that's not really what I'd like my kids to be doing in 20 or 30 years' time. So I started, getting everything sort of came together. There was a real sort of apex for me, Charlie, because I was on a real welfare journey as well. I'd watched a few things and done a bit of research, and I really wasn't excited about what I saw happening in big ag. And when you're watching those documentaries, as well as you're seeing the worst of the worst. But I had this health stuff going on, the kids arriving, and then I was a bit disenfranchised with looking at footage of feedlots and factory farms, and it all just sort of clicked for me all of a sudden. I'm like, well, I got a bit of easy access to land here. I can go outside and buy some polywire.
Was that like, how did you start? Because I mean, did you Google? Did you read a book? Was there someone around that mentored you somewhat? Like, or you just went, I'm just gonna, I don't know, wade your way into it and try this and do that?
Well, I definitely learn better by doing. Like, I like reading and watching videos and everything else, but hands-on is great. But it was Joel Salatin that really set it up for me. Like I said, I started with gardening. When we started wanting good quality food, because I had a backyard, and so I put some raised beds in and started growing carrots and asparagus and whatever else. And I was watching a homesteader in America called Justin Rhodes. He does this Great American Farm Tour. So he puts his kids on a bus that he's renovated into a motorhome, and he drives. His idea was to go around the whole northern USA and visit all these cool farms. And one of the farmers, I was watching a gardening one because that's what I was interested in, and there was a thumbnail on the side, and it said something like, "This man buys land for $20 an acre." And I knew it was clickbait, but I couldn't not click it. And it was Joel Salatin showing how he was doubling the potential capacity of his property with $20 of infrastructure per acre. That was the idea of the video. And, the way Joel talks and the way he sells the story, and it just became, collecting eggs had never seemed romantic to me before. And I'm like, that looks really fun. I want some chickens.
Is it still romantic?
Yeah. I'll tell you, I don't do chores on the farm that often. Like, I've got boys out here that, there's different parts of the business that I'm working on at the moment. But if things get hectic for me, I drive out here and go do chores. It's very
that's
relaxing.
A bit of therapy.
Yeah, it's great. It's cathartic, and it's I just listen to it. You're out there, that there's no customers barking at you and no phones ringing, and it's beautiful.
Birds tweeting.
Yep.
Bees buzzing. So experimenting. Joel Salatin inspiration. Well, he was there at the
that's why I was
the
there.
Nutrisoils. Yeah. Had you'd heard of him before that? Like, you'd had a whiff of him and gone, hang on, he's going
I've
to be
been watching him for a few months online, and he actually went to Ben Falloon's farm in Woodend, Taranaki farm, and ran a 2-day workshop a month before that Nutrisoil event. So I went to that workshop for the weekend and had a blast.
He'd been there a couple of times. That's right.
And then I think he went to South Africa and then came back to Australia. Like,
He, at the end of that tour, he'd been away for the longest he'd ever been away, and I can't remember quite when we saw him at Nutrisource. I can't remember quite the period of time, but weeks and weeks, and he was absolutely shagged.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you what a lovely bloke, because I interviewed him. It's worth noting because of the quality of the man. He'd done months away. He was buggered. We did that interview the night before. We literally turned the thing off and went and had dinner, and he was in bed. He crashed, and I picked him up. I was probably 5:30 the next morning. We were staying in the same house, and I dropped him at the airport just here. And he flew to Sydney, and then Sydney straight home. Like, he was absolutely. But I tell you what a bloke to keep on pushing and giving and explaining, and just such a lovely guy. So I'm not surprised he's an inspiration, given you'd referenced him before when we got here, looking at your chickens down there. So more of that. What were some of the challenges? So you'd set yourself, somewhat of a target to grow your own food. You had land. You were so the egg chickens and the beef were the first experiments. What came next? I
think it was the end of year 2019, or it could have been 2018, but I'd set myself a goal. I wanted to have a whole month where I didn't eat anything that I didn't grow. And I was thinking, this will probably be right at the end of the year. This is my New Year's resolution, but I'm going to need a long time to set myself up. But I want to go 30 days where I only eat things that I've grown. I didn't quite get that because I got a bit sidetracked, as I tend to do. But
you ate a few muffins from the shop in town.
Yeah.
Some coffee.
Yeah, I drank a little bit. We got a cafe, so by nature I have to.
What about you couldn't have tea and coffee? Did you have, or didn't that count? That didn't qualify.
I actually never got to the point where I set a month aside to achieve it, because it only took a few months, and all of a sudden 100% of our meat and protein was coming from the farm, and I basically stopped eating carbs. So, I never did that month where it was 100% my own stuff, but ever since then it's been 90% my own stuff.
Yep. Yeah. And why no carbs?
I just feel like dirt when I eat carbs. I get pimples, I cough, I sneeze, I get a runny nose, my bowels don't work properly, I put weight on, I feel tired.
When did you work that out?
When Dr. Max told me that's one of the things that was probably contributing.
When did he say that?
I met Dr. Max on a farm tour, actually. It was a couple of years ago now, and it was really interesting. I open the farm up for farm tours all the time, and I had one local doctor, Rob Szabo, email me after a farm tour. I didn't even know he was on the tour per se. Loved your tour, Jake. There's a couple other doctors in town. We'd love to come out and have a bit of a private tour if you'd let us. And he brought Max out, and that's when I met Max.
So Max, because I just interviewed Max this morning, and so he said he's working with Robert, and so he's known him for a few years, and it was down here. Okay, that's all filling in a few gaps there for me. That's great. And then they came out because they were just interested in what you're doing, or what did they?
Well, they're very bullish on meat. They think that great quality meat is a keystone to health, and so when they're working with their patients in clinic, one of the things they refer their patients to do is eat better. Make better choices, and they take them down that path of it's actually important where you source those ingredients. So, not all beef's equal or not all eggs are equal. So they were coming out here to do due diligence, really. I think Dr. Rob's and Max themselves, they've probably been on half a dozen tours each now.
Yep. And I guess they're here to support you too. And, there's only so many times you can see a farm, differently, but I guess.
Dr. Rob comes to a lot of my events. We run a lot of workshops and events, and he loves just coming along and getting involved with the community. Dr. Max co-hosts a lot of my farm tours with me now. So we do tours all the time. And he asked when he moved to Albury, he said, can I come and co-host some of the tours with you to, good way for him to meet some people and build a bit of reputation. And that's been lots of fun because, I talk and talk and talk. Our tours go for 3-4 plus hours, and I make a lot of audacious claims, and I can't always back them up. But Dr. Max often can.
You defer to Max for the
it's hot potato
for the science.
I just look at him, that one's you. I just said we can reverse type 2 diabetes with food. I got no idea how we're going to do it though, Max. You can take that.
That's a classic. So eggs and beef, and then what came next?
It's really interesting. There's a farm just north of here, West Waller Farm. They're pasture-raised egg producers, and I bumped into them.
West Waller
Farm. I bumped into them early in the piece and bought a couple piglets. They had Wessex saddleback pigs, which they don't do pork anymore, but they were doing a bit of pork then. And I said, can I buy a couple weaners? I think I bought 4 weaner pigs off them and put them in that front dam paddock. And I still remember going to the local ag store buying, I think I was on Google going, what do pigs eat? I was at the ag store, I bought 20 kilos of corn, 20 kilos a week. It probably cost me $40 a bag.
Deer's poison. Yeah.
And then they were getting swill out of the house kitchen. So like everything, like I said, I didn't know what I was doing, but that's never worried me before. And we had them in the front paddock. And when we processed the first body of beef, it tasted nice, but I think all beef's pretty nice. The eggs were good. I'm used to farm fresh eggs. Dad's always had chooks. But when we processed the first 2 pigs and ate that pigs, that was a real sort of aha thing for my wife and I. When we got married, I'm not a very good cook. I've never cooked before, but my wife's an amazing cook. And when we got married, I thought I need to learn a few meals because we're going to have kids and I need to be able to pull my weight a little bit. I need a few things up my sleeve, and I thought the best meal to start with would be a pork belly. So I started doing a pork belly. It's like every Thursday night or something. It was my night to experiment on my wife with my cooking. I remember I was looking at Jamie Oliver, Gordon Ramsay, a few different chefs trying to get his tricks on a pork belly, And every time I made a pork belly, we just felt like dirt. We both sat on the couch, bogged down, indigestion, and it always tasted really nice. And I'm thinking, am I poisoning us? And one day Anne said, look, Jake, I think you've got to give the pork belly a rest, stick to some of your other recipes. And
why was that?
Well, what was really interesting, I don't know exactly why that was.
Who said that?
My wife. She's like, give it a break because
something's not quite
something's not right. And then I don't know what, off the back of that, I don't know what gave me the idea to buy some pigs and raise them. But when we processed those pigs and then we ate that pork, we both felt fantastic.
Right, so the stuff you were buying and trying, so that the trying of the pork belly was before you actually grew it.
It was, that's right. We're buying it from Safeway or Aldi or the local butcher. I went to local butchers. I think pigs are, I've got a real soft spot for pigs because they're such an intelligent, playful, rambunctious animal. And I talk about pigs being anti-fragile, which lets us abuse them so much more than we can get away with some other animals. And I just think if you take an animal whose nature is to wallow, root around in the dirt, be social, eat an omnivorous diet, soak up sunshine, and you put it in a concrete building with no sunshine, no dirt, I really feel like we're sinning against that animal. And it's just a natural byproduct of that the output's not going to be quite right.
It's never going to bless us with good flavours and good quality given the way we treat them.
I feel like I've said to the boys, my son's out here, that because we talk about it a little bit, and I say, we make the pig bitter because of the way we treat it, and that comes full circle. It sort of gets us back in the end. So I still have that today. If we're in an event and there's catered event, some pork comes out, and I always try not to eat it because I have a hard time reconciling it. But if I do, it still hurts me into physically, gives me stomach pains and cramps.
You can tell. Yeah,
but our stuff is, and I get that feedback a lot. So out of all the proteins that we offer, because we offer, chicken and lamb and everything now, pork's the one that I get the most overwhelming feedback. I couldn't eat it before I found yours. Made me crook. Most people have a pretty good time with whatever beef they're eating, from my experience.
Well, the pork's often, commercial pork's got a fair bit of antibiotic, and I'm making a few assumptions, but there's certainly a lot more medications and inputs, so-called animal health treatments in commercial pigs, I'd imagine, than
There's so many things. Even the way they stick boars in corner pens so that all the sows can smell them, and it gets them to all ovulate. And you just think about how stressed all these animals are that they can smell each other and can't get to each other, and it just seems like a constant state of anxiety.
And then do they AI them, do they? They get them all cycling and then bingo.
Yep.
Yeah, right. So pork has been a big hit.
Yep.
And then...
That was a real, bit of a paradigm shift for me because it was... I was listening to all these gurus and reading all these books, and I'd bought into the fact that better meat made you feel better, and I felt like I felt better. But then to actually eat something that made you feel crook if it was raised this way, and it made you feel great if it was raised this way, that was a real sort of bingo. I was like, now I've experienced it for myself. I get it now. So we're going to do probably 350 pigs this year. We're on track to push through the butchery. Yep.
Wow. So I want to get to the butchery a bit later. So we're still sort of in what else? Pork, beef, eggs. You're also doing the meat birds down there.
So we added the broilers into there, and the broilers has been super challenging just in logistics, just trying to source the chicks, because there's no industry for pastured poultry in Australia. It just flat out doesn't exist.
So where do you get these from?
They're from Tamworth.
So they're a pretty standard meat bird.
They're a Biata Cobb 500 or whatever it is. Yeah. They're like they're the KFC Safeway chicken.
Right.
Same bird. It's completely uneconomical. It's even uneconomical to raise these, really, let alone if you tried to do some dual-purpose heritage bird. They'd be $100 chickens. You'd never get anywhere with it.
So what about the what's the famous? The famous is probably not the right word. The meat birds, the Australian bred
Summerlad. Yep.
You tried them?
I haven't eaten one, and I'm sure they're great. But what do they sell for?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure they weren't far off $100 a bird.
A bird, as in the store,
a whole chook. Yeah. So these things I can finish them off in 6 or 7 weeks, and I'm still retailing them for $35. That's a whole raw bird.
6 or 7 weeks from when you get them as a day old.
That's right.
And that's fully grown.
Yeah, that'll be a size 1.6 kilo whole.
Ready to go.
Chook, ready to rock, and it's still $35. Customers can go and buy one cooked in a bag, hot, ready to go for $8.
So how does that economics work for that end of it? The $8, like it's like those the Jamie Oliver, Hugh Furling Winning Store did that thing, River Cottage thing with the is it 2 pound birds in at Tesco or somewhere, and he sort of it was fat. Have you seen that one?
No.
Oh, you love it. It's fascinating. River Cottage, Hugh Fernley Winning Store legend, and he's done a salmon campaign and sort of all the buy whatever is it, the extra fish that they catch that they just throw back over. He did one big doco sort of show on that one. He did this chicken one because he was just emphasising, as you have just now, like two, dead bird side by side. One is $8 and one is $35. There's something going on there. There's the economics of that. Is pointing to a very different management and production system there. A
lot of, they're obviously making, in my opinion, they're making shortcuts to get to that $8 bird. Like that $8 bird is subsidised. Now, it might not be subsidised in terms of government subsidies, or it might well be. Like we know a lot of big business get a lot of big breaks, but it's subsidised by animal suffering, poor environmental outcomes, they're degrading the commons. There's a lot of, and then the quality itself of the end product, I'd argue, isn't that great either. So there's just externalized costs all around. So what we're trying to do here is have no externalized costs, or have absolutely minimal externalized costs. And then coupled with that, so we're bleeding heart green, he's trying to do everything perfect, but then coupled with that, we've got no efficiencies and the whole industry's against this. Like it cost me $3.50 to get my chicken slaughtered at the abattoir. And then because of our current economy of scale, it cost me about $3 to drive the bird to the abattoir in fuel and labour and then get it home again. So I'm at $7 just to get the bird slaughtered.
Yeah.
But if I was doing 10 times the amount of bird, my trip to Melbourne's fixed. So it's just a scale thing. Yeah. So to give you an idea, Charlie, if you look it up on the government websites, Australia is currently producing somewhere between 1.5 and 1.8 million chickens a day.
Are you serious?
The United States of America is 1 billion a week. That's with a billion with a B a week. So Australia is 1.5 million a day. Like, let's round down. And the biggest pastured poultry producer that I've been able to find in Australia, just going around on Facebook and Google and talking to people and asking those in the industry, does about 250 a week. So if you contrast that 250 birds a week to 1.5 million a day, it's 0.0006%. So the industry just doesn't exist. There's absolute...
In terms of large producers, it's just not.
Well, if you bundle all of us together, every single pastured poultry producer in Australia, it'd still be 0.001% of production if we're lucky. So like it's a little bit sad on one hand, but on the other hand, it's really exciting because it's a whole new world. It's a brave frontier. Yeah. You know, there's no more countries to explore, or any. You know, there's no sort of big unknowns, but there's markets that haven't been touched.
How many birds in that hoop down there?
That's got 700 in it.
Wow. And then they will then move into what's their life journey?
Well, I've got a brooding shed here, which is a old refrigerated semi-trailer van body that I've retrofitted.
You maintain the conditions
in
their temperature.
So it's called a brooding shed because you're basically mimicking a broody hen. So the chickens come at a day old. They're just under 40 grams and they don't have any feathers. Like, they've got fluff. They can't regulate their body temperature. So you put them in the broody shed for 21 days to put on a bit of weight and put on some feathers. And then they go into that schooner, I call it. And they're in there for about 21 days as well.
Yep.
And then we come here at 10 o'clock at night. There's three of us. We load them into big plastic crates and put them on the trailer and drive them down. We leave at midnight to get to the abattoir in Melbourne, 5 a.m., unload them. Chickens all get processed. We put the crates back on the trailer, drive home, and then someone else goes down in the refrigerator truck the next day and picks them all up again.
And how many will you do in a load?
All of them.
You'll do 700 one go?
Yep.
And you'll freeze a fair few of them?
I do all my meat frozen. I don't sell anything fresh.
And why is that?
I remember, again, coming back to Joel Salatin, he made some comment in some podcast about it early on that it was the only way to do it, and everyone I spoke to that was doing direct-to-consumer marketing all poo-pooed it. They all said it was too hard selling frozen meat and real challenging. But honestly, there's that many variables and that many peaks and troughs in production and everything. Trying to manage fresh inventory would just be an absolute nightmare. So like my lambs that are lambing here, I'm going to have all the wethers ready to be processed in 4 or 5 months. And then I won't have lamb again for 12 months.
Yep.
So instead of letting it all go frozen.
It makes perfect sense.
So I've just got a few big refrigerated freighters, frozen freezer freighters, and I just stockpile meat when it's ready. Because then you get the opportunity to actually process the animal when it's ready instead of when you need it.
Yep. And then, you can stockpile or... now let's jump to talk about protein and meat. You bought a butchery in 3 years ago, 2020, in Albury. What's it called?
Wolki Butchery. I'm very creative. I'm a very marketing genius.
It doesn't sound because now is that the same one that you some months ago did the automatic one? Is that the same one?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So you did what 2.5 years or so of conventional butchery?
No. So we purchased the butchery purely because it was very apparent that it was the biggest bottleneck in our business. You know, the local butcher who was doing my meat said he could only do a body of beef once a month and a couple of pigs a month, and there was no business case. It was a tiny little hobby at that point. And beyond that, all the butchers thought I was an idiot. You know, I didn't want to use... I remember one butcher told me off, said I was going to kill people because I didn't want preservatives in my bacon. He shouted me out of the shop. And so I'm like, these guys are hard to handle. They have no capacity for production, and they don't even like me. You know?
Well, they might also see you as like you're coming in with you're basically selling meat to people they could be selling meat to too. Was that the thing?
Yeah, for sure. You know, the one butcher that ended up processing for me a couple bodies, quite a nice guy. You know, local butcher. We still get along, but it was just a volume thing. And so there was an old building in town that had just been. The butchery had just closed down. It's been a famous butchery in Albury for 75 years, run by the same family, a German family doing, you know, blood sausage and all these sort of black pudding and all this old stuff. So we purchased the freehold, my wife and I, because we thought we were going to have a go at making this a going concern or not. Like, is it going to be a hobby and we do a body of beef a month, or are we going to really try to feed some people? So we purchased it, renovated it, decked it out. I put a butcher on who was working 2 days a week breaking beef for me, and then he'd go work a day or two a week in the bike shop building bicycles for me. And then I'd ring up my neighbours and go, oh, do you want me to slash your thistles? I'll do it for free for you, just to try and give my butcher something to do, because we just had no work for him. But I had to give him a full-time job to get him on board. So it was really, quiet in the beginning. But I did that automated thing within 6 months of buying it. It only just got attention a few months ago. So
really?
It's been going for over 2 years.
Really?
Yep.
Right. And how's that all going?
Great. Should I explain to people?
Yeah, no, go do it.
When we purchased the butchery, it was only to be a process. It was a boning room, not a bricks and mortar come in and buy your sausage.
Wasn't a retail front?
No, so it had a retail front, but I didn't want to use it because, like, our production that year was benchmarked. I projected that I was going to be raising about $400,000 worth of protein off the farm if I could get it all processed and sold. And to open up a storefront and sell 400 grams worth of protein and pay someone, 60 grand a year to sit there and sell it made absolutely no sense. And it definitely made no sense when I stepped back and it was all basically already selling anyway. Like that, everything I was producing was selling to the organic market or to beef splits to people.
So you just needed the facility to break it down and, cut out the middleman, I guess, and the bottleneck.
And customers kept saying, when are you going to open the shop? When are you going to open the shop? I said, well, it's open. We're out the back breaking beef, but there's just no shop front because we don't need it. And I was pretty dogmatic about that. And then a local butcher who I was chatting to, he's not really a butcher. He's like a small goods business, does salamis and things. He said, when are you going to open the shop front? I said, never. It's not a concern. I don't know when this was like November the year we bought it. So if we just started processing our beef, we're going to open the shop front. I said, never. He goes, you'll have it open in March. And I remember walking out of his store going, you dog, because he just dangled this goalpost in front of me and I couldn't shake it. And I couldn't make the business work, but I couldn't get his taunt out of my head. And I was just doing, we're a retail immigrant family, so you run all your profit and loss budgets on the back of an envelope. You go in the drawer and pull out all the old envelopes and you do your math on the back of it. And I thought I could probably make it work if I didn't have any wages out the front. So I thought I need to turn it into a big walk-in vending machine. So I got on the internet and I tried to find big vending machines, and they were you can find them. Like you can buy a vending machine as big as you want, and they can be frozen and hit the button and your frozen T-bone comes out, but they're enormously expensive.
And only reason, even though you can get a big one, it's still probably not adequate to, for a decent turnover.
So just back to the drawing board, and I basically came up with a concept that people could enter a room using a unique PIN or a fob card. So if you think about your 24-hour gym, you're just allowed in and out whenever you want.
Yep.
And then I set that up and I put some security cameras in it, and I found an app that my customers could download onto their smartphone. So now we've got, 300 and something members that turn up to the butchery, enter their unique PIN in, the door cracks open, they go in. I've got about 10,000 litres of freezer space with all of our produce on display.
All yours?
It's all ours.
Any others?
We've just started onboarding a few suppliers to help us ease out production bumps.
Yeah.
And they come in and they pick the meat they want, use the app.
So they can open the freezer door, pull out a T-bone.
Yep, scan it, pay through the app. So I don't have any hardware there to facilitate the purchase. It's all done on their private phone.
So they use their phone to scan the thing, right, and then it goes through their phone, and the payments to take place within that.
Yes.
Wow. And what about, obvious question is like kind of, theft. People, I guess the member goes in, exactly when that member's gone in, and if things disappear, then...
That's right. I know everyone that's in and out, and I've got cameras, so it's passive surveillance. But we've had, to my knowledge, there's been no theft in 2.5 years since it's probably been longer. It's probably almost, it's about that. Anyway, there's been I've actually seen a couple customers that I've thought, I've been watching the video footage and I'm thinking they paid for 3 things and took 4, and I'm rewinding it, zooming in. It's a bit creepy, like a bit Big Brotherish, but I'm like, something's not right here. And I've got a rule that I sleep on things. Like I don't like to be the sort of guy that calls
Jump
someone,
on it and
hot
go,
the
"Whoa,"
phone
yeah.
and I slept on it, and it's happened a few times now, but every single time I've woken up the next morning, there's been an email from that customer. The cabana didn't scan. Could you send me an invoice for it?
Right. So it's all above board.
Or there was 2 packs of sausages frozen together and I didn't realise. Could you invoice me for it? And everyone that I've ever seen has come good. We've got to really to become a member of our butchery. You have to come and do a farm tour.
That's
But a membership-
that's the criteria, the filter.
There's no cost to be a member except 4 hours of your Sunday.
Have you ever knocked anyone back for membership and said, no, you're not our kind of people?
I haven't directly knocked people back, but I've navigated. Well, I tell you what,
have you just like not processed someone's membership accident on purpose?
I have deliberately forgotten people, and it's felt. But I've been working in the store, and people knock on the door. We'd love to be members, and I go, "Oh, that's great. I'd love to have you. You just have to come to a farm," and I explain it to them, and you can just see their eyes glaze over because they just want a Gucci steak to have for their fancy dinner once a week.
So they're not that deeper appreciation.
Well, I'm not that producer. Like, you're probably better off going to one of the other local butchers and getting Wagyu. Or like, if you want something special because of the brand name on it or something like that, like it's not really what we're producing for.
Tell me about experimentation here. Like, what are some of the things that have worked really well, whether that's an operational thing or kind of philosophies and what also, let's start with that, and then I'll ask you about what things haven't worked and what you learnt weren't. So what are the wins? What are the learnings? Well, it could be, that shed's shit and that one's better.
Well, I had a big Joel Salatin X-Wing. I don't know if you've seen them, but it's a big
A-frame thing, yeah.
I built one of those. It was the first thing I built on the farm, and I got 3 tradies out of here. 2 were cousins and 1 was a mate that went to that Taranaki farm workshop with me back in the day. We actually
Ben's
measured
got one
up.
down there,
He got a couple. We measured his and drew blueprints and came home and built it. And that was a bit of a flop for us. Like, it was great, 600-700 birds in it, whatever. But I've got a little 45 horsepower tractor here and could barely move it. Couldn't get it through half the gate, so I had to cut holes in all my fences to get it through. And what really ended up doing it for me for that structure was, if you needed to move it a decent distance, you couldn't, because the birds once you start dragging it, because it's an open-aired structure, the birds jump out. And if you move it more than 30 metres, the birds sleep on the ground where the structure was.
Right.
So these new ones I've got here, I actually pulled that X-Wing apart and I made 2 of those. They're my Egmobiles. They have about 350 birds capacity each. And you lock it at night time.
You can shut it in.
And you could drive it 50 kilometres if you want and open it up, and all the birds are still with you. And I can move them with my little side-by-side.
Yes.
Or a ute. So just far more. I've really probably started dialing things back, just to make it a bit more manageable when we don't have much infrastructure here in terms of good quality roads or heavy machinery.
So dialing back in terms of the size or the requirement for management or labour for things.
I guess. And just, understanding it is only a 40-hectare farm and more smaller structures is probably better than fewer bigger ones.
Yeah, okay. No, that's fair. So that's a good one. Because I've heard a similar thing. I know a couple of people who've got the big A-frames and maybe similar experiences, size, weight, didn't have the gear to pull it, and I guess the alternatives are pretty attractive. The ones that are a bit more manageable. And have you got a feather net around that one? Or
I don't run fences. I got Maremas here.
Okay.
That look after them, but I've got solar powered doors that open and close on sunrise and sunset.
So they're light sensitive?
Yes. We've got them set up to close 15 minutes after sun disappears. So
okay, they've got a bit of a window to get in if they're sort of running late.
That's one of the things I've really been, obsessing about a little bit lately is everyone in this little niche industry that I've found myself a part of, which is direct to consumer, stacked enterprise, regen farmers. We all like to spruik animal welfare as to one of the reasons that we should be supported, but I just haven't been impressed of late with our level of sophistication. Like it's all well and good to take an animal outside. You know, I've heard that many horror stories of people that have built these and slept in one morning and forgot to open it, and half the birds have
Suffocated
cooked to death. And
right.
And you know, like it just shouldn't happen. And it doesn't. $180, and I put an automatic door on that, and it's automated. It doesn't matter if you're sleeping.
That's just good sense, good labour use, efficiency, good.
My brooding shed has a cellular Wi-Fi dongle in it that transmits to my phone, and it shows me temperature, humidity, sound, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, everything, and it's live all the time. So if it gets really loud in there because the birds are stressing at 1 a.m, my phone will go off and I'll wake up and I can go and check on my birds.
Yeah, right.
And
so
that's a $200 investment, and I've got it. So
it's bloody, and that stuff is, I guess, in terms of technology. I'm not a big fan of technology for technology's sake.
Doesn't look like it.
No, that's exactly right. No, I was forced to do this. But because I think that there's, and I've kind of been a victim of it, not a victim, like just going, that's the newest flashiest thing, and I'll get it because it feels like I need it. But so there's the extreme. I just want to get it for the sake of it. But there's also, and then you kind of in some ways become a master to that. And that could be like digital technology. It could be infrastructure, that sort of technology. But I think it always is worth that investigation, research, and experimentation, isn't it? Like, because there's so much more stuff. Even the solar door. I mean, what an innovation! Yeah. Such a simple thing. I thought they were on a timer, but I didn't know that they were on a light sensitive thing, which makes more sense because I was thinking, what about daylight saving? I got to remember to change it. But if it's all on this, the up and the down of the sun, well, that makes perfect sense.
There's definitely a line you've got to draw with the technology, because every time if you're just rolling out technology for the sake of efficiency gains, you're going to end up back at a battery hen cage facility, aren't you? So you've got to really know what you're trying to achieve.
Well, that's a good point, because there's still that remaining connected with nature and doing it in a natural way. But as you say, I think light sensitive door, no brainer.
Yeah,
your bit of tech down here to check on your chickens. That's a no brainer. But there's no bad. No, apart from maybe Wi-Fi being down there and the chickens being zapped by Wi-Fi.
I'm about to put in full spectrum UV lights in their shed for them. I feel bad for them being in the shed under fluoro, so I'm going to start experimenting with giving them different lights.
Well, there's ones, and it's funny how this has come up 3 times in the last week. When I built our office at Hennaminnow at home, we put in fluoro lights like your normal tube ones. But they were, and I can find out the name of it, a special, is it Argon or something? There's a particular brand that is not the zapping fluoro ones. And look, this is 12 years ago, so there may be actually much better technologies now. But I reckon, I have replaced 20% of them, and they've lasted for 12 years. Mm. And if what they are branded as is true, they're not those zapping ones. So yeah, well there you go. These. Your incremental, research. All these things are part of fine tuning, experimenting. So, what else? Any other? What about administration side?
Well, I've got a full-time bookkeeper that looks after all of our companies. So, in terms of I recommend everyone should outsource all their paperwork, because it's a nightmare. Who wants to do it? If you roll out of bed one day and go, I'm going to be an accountant, special.
Bag's not.
not for me. My book.
It's a very niche job, but critical, and critical is done bloody well. There's one of those things that I'll give it a crack, and I hope I keep up with all of the invoicing and all of the ins and outs and all of the the compliance now is.
It's brutal. Yeah, it takes all the fun out of it. It's nice to have finally gotten our businesses to the point where that's a task we don't have to worry about, because, like you said, you hire people to do it and they're better at it than you. we were always having admin issues when it was up to us to do the wages. Like when you're working on the floor and then having to do all that stuff, it's a tall order.
Oh no, it's a challenge.
What
about learnings? Any challenges you ever had that you might put down to, dare I say, failure, or and you'd gone, well, it wasn't a failure because I learnt X.
Well, I don't know. There's probably nothing that jumps to mind massively. I can remember those first 4 pigs we had in the paddock, trying to load them to take them to the abattoir, and there was 3 of us down there. My father, my farmhand Michael, who's still with us, and myself. And we must have been trying for 2 hours to load 2 pigs. That would have been 85 kilo pigs, so not enormous pigs. And we just, tested relationship and religion and gave up. Just thought we just can't get it on.
They were stubborn. They just didn't want to go.
They were stubborn, and we just thought, how much do pigs suck? Like, this is the most horrible thing ever. And now, like, we're sending about a dozen pigs a fortnight off for processing. And Michael, the same farmhand, he's been with me for over 3 years. He goes down the back, sets up the portable yards, and he loads a dozen pigs that are 100 kilos each by himself. Takes him half an hour. Does it
so
all
what
by
was
himself.
What was the difference?
There's so many little things, but for starters, we were trying to put them in a trailer that had a roof on it with the first time.
So
pigs,
enclosed.
they don't want to go into a dark room.
Yeah,
there's absolutely no way.
Yeah.
Really steep ramp. We hodgepodge together a ramp to get them into a little makeshift cage trailer that I was trying to send them in. They don't want to go up a steep ramp. The ramp was wide enough they could turn around in it. There's all these little 1%ers, and you can read them. Like, I read all the pig books I could get my hands on, and I watched all the YouTube videos, and people can say this to you, but even if they gave you the measurements, you still wouldn't know what to do with them, because what if you're finishing pigs at a different size to them, or there's so much nuance and context to it. So I think a lot of that stuff you can't really get it right until you just fall on your face in the mud and think to yourself, I'm not going to do that again. Pigs are a beautiful example, though, because they're so challenging in some way and so easy in other ways. Like, we have all our pigs trained to hot wire, and I don't think we've had a pig break out of a paddock for 2 years. It's now that we've just got our system styled, it's so nice. But in the beginning, it was very challenging to keep them. Pigs are notorious for not being able to control that easily, but we find them a walk in the park. So one mob of pigs, 40, 50 in one group, that's sort of what our groups max out at. That'd be less than 5 hours labour a week for us.
So what other fine tuning of systems have you put in place that you learned a certain way? It was a Joel Salatin thing, but then you've fine tuned yourself. I mean, you this is a bit of an experiment. This hoop here. I'm drilling down this because this is a really good opportunity to sort of identify the operational stuff here, because that's what you're doing with, different species and the experimenting and the challenges you've had. It's worth sort of drilling down. I reckon I'm fascinated with all because we do pigs very poorly. We have enough bacon to put in the freezer and that sort of thing, and we're not doing meat birds. We've got our own little chickens, hens for eggs, but nothing at the scale of this. And so, tell me more.
Well, this prairie schooner that's got the 700 broilers in it is really the reason I've gone to that is an animal welfare and a human welfare exercise, because to run 700 birds on this farm prior to that shelter, we had 10 of your Salatin style chicken tractors, which are those low square frames on the ground. They'd have 70 birds in each, and you pick them up by a piece of wire with a hose threaded over it, and you drag them 3 meters. And the staff just hated doing it because it was hard work, and I don't think the climate in there for our area was very good for birds. Like, they were hot and cold a lot. Right. They were cold overnight and hot in the day, but just the way it was laid out. And, between the staff not wanting to do it, like the staff love, all the guys that work here have basically come out of factory farm environments, feedlots and piggeries and things. They want to farm, but they don't want to farm like that. So they come here and they love it. They're on cloud 9. But then to hear them grumble about jobs, like, I don't want to fight the staff and go, you've got to go drag those tractors. I'm like, well, obviously that's a crappy system. We just need to have a better system. So now we've got a system that's allowing the vehicle to do the job for us, so that gets towed by our ute or the tractor. but it's also allowed me to automate it. So the other chicken tractors, I had buckets on top, and the bucket would fill up with water, and it'd gravity feed into a bell feeder for the chickens.
Oh, these ones up there. I know the one. Yeah.
So each chicken would have 20 litres of water, each shelter. And in summer, you'd have to fill them like 3 times a day, and they still might run out. Right. But because of the way I've got 700 birds in one shelter here, I can invest in a bit more automated infrastructure. And now I've got a nipple drinker with that's 16 metres long. It's got a nipple every 80 mil or whatever it is, and I'm able just to plug that in.
And
there's just flowing water all the time.
Yeah, right. Plug it into you've got some pipe work down there, have you?
We've got 2 kilometres of ag pipe buried on the farm. So
and probably less waste too.
Yeah, less waste and a bit cleaner. I can get water anywhere on the farm with a 50-metre hose on this property. But that's an animal welfare thing. Like if you've got chickens in the paddock that are running out of water because it's hotter than normal, and when they're running out middle of summer is not when the staff want to be out there hauling water either. And so this is actually going to have automated feed. I've got everything, feed pan systems. I've got everything in the shed ready for it. I've got an auto start generator, and I'm going to daisy chain up extraction fans hooked up to a solenoid in summer as well to keep airflow going when it's really warm.
Yep.
And it's not enough. I don't think it's enough to take these birds that have been bred for hundreds of generations to be an optimized shed bird like that, because that's what they are. They're a meat bird that's been bred for a shed environment.
Yep.
And then when we throw them in a pasture that goes 3 degrees overnight and 35 degrees in the day, when they're optimized for a 23-degree environment, and go, we're so good, look at how we look after our chickens. Like I don't think there's enough nuance there. Like they do need a little bit of help.
So they can still because that shed gets moved. It's on going on a new fresh pasture every day. So they're in a pastured environment, but they're in a one that's appropriate for their genetics. And then
probably more appropriate than if it had no amendments. Like it's probably still not. If you look at the context, like when we talk about animal welfare on the farm, and I was down at the Mornington Peninsula Food Forum. They invited me to go down and do a presentation on animal welfare and Wolki Farm. And for me, animal welfare, if you really want to get to the crux of it, you need to look at the animal in its natural context and look at what its expressions are. And so they're sort of like big fluffy words, but it's a really easy It's a really easy workshop to go through, especially with kids, because you go, what's a pig? And they go, oh, it's an animal that builds a wallow, lays in the mud. Like the first thing everyone says is, what's the natural expression of a pig? It's an animal that lays in a wallow. It's like, okay, so 99% of pigs that are raised for protein in Australia never get to experience a wallow. So what's the natural expression of these animals being broilers? And, what's the context of that? Where have they come from and where are they now? And how are we going to steward that on our farm? And it's interesting, like we've got our production values on the farm. We've got our 5 pillars of production. And I really believe that if you get welfare right, the environment falls into place. It's only farming practices where we're violating the animal's natural expression that are leading to degrading the commons. It's the feedlot versus the Great Migration argument, isn't it?
Totally. Let's go to human health, because I guess the catalyst, as you said there in the beginning, that some of you had your own health challenges which spurred you on to sourcing good food, better food, and then that led to you having to do it yourself, and then here we are today looking at these amazing enterprises. You've recently, when I say recently, I think in the last 6 months or so, you've had a couple of on-farm events that were not just demonstrating, chickens and pigs and so on, but you've sort of heading or making that connection to human health with a few doctors.
Yes. Yep.
You want to?
Well, we've had we had the Australian Beef Initiative here, and then we've taken over a couple different restaurants in town. So I go and work with the chefs, and we book out the venue for the whole night and load the kitchen up with all of our ingredients, and we sell all the tickets, and then we give a few keynote presentations with local doctors, and those are important, like branding and marketing events for us, but they're also, that's what our mission is to create this beautiful food for people and get it in front of them so that they can realize their potential. Everyone that is a customer of ours has been on a food journey. Can I tell you quickly what my 5? Because I think it's probably a good.
You can tell me. You can tell me anything, Jake. This is what it's about. Yeah. What are your 5? What?
Our 5 pillars of production on the farm. So there's a little bit of a story. I'll lead into it. A few years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I got nominated for Young Entrepreneur of the Year for our area.
Aubrey.
In Albury.
Yep.
It was the local Chamber of Commerce did it.
Yeah, cool.
And I didn't want a bar of it. I thought it was longer than that. Before I was married, probably 10 years ago. I was just not interested at all. I just thought the whole thing was a hobnob event, and it was. Newsflash. Anyway, they nagged me, and I said okay. And then I got the paperwork, and they wanted to nominate me. But what it actually was they wanted me to nominate myself. Those events, you got to nominate yourself and fill out all the paperwork and tell them how good you are. So I sat down and spent 20 minutes doing the paperwork. It was one form that I couldn't convince my bookkeeper to do for me. And I went to the event and I didn't win, shock horror, because I spent 20 minutes on the paperwork, and my friend won it. He has a local sound and lighting and entertainment installation business here, Mactronics. He came and visited me a few days later in the shop, and he said, that was a fun night, wasn't it? Jake, how much time did you spend on your application? I said, about 20 minutes. And his jaw just dropped open. I said, how much time did you spend? He said, 2 days. Sat down and put 2 days, and I sort of went home and said to Anne, no wonder I didn't do very well. And I always remember one of the questions on the application was, what's your business's mission statement? And I just thought, this is just such a waste of time, because we had the bike shop and we didn't have a mission statement. We're a mum and dad business working 7 days a week, flying by the seat of our pants. Like, we'd never sat down and had a brainstorming session or anything like that. And so I just wrote down some mumbo jumbo. It was our mission is to mobilise the community and decongest roads and get people to enjoy their weekends with their families on the bicycle while making a profit for the share. It's like if you take the top 500 Fortune 500 companies, it's everyone's mission statement. There's all like a little social aspect, there's all a little environmental aspect, and then it's about the shareholders. They're all crap. Last year, I got asked by the New South Wales business they said, we'd like to nominate you for Young Business Leader for the year for the Riverina area. Same thing. And I'm like, oh, yeah. No, you got to nominate yourself. Then they kept nagging me to nominate myself, and I didn't want to do it. And then they said, oh, actually, Jake, enrollments are down a little bit because of 2 years of lockdowns. Can you help us out? I said, all right, I'll do it. Ended up being one of their best events. Everyone, I think it was just when lockdowns were sort of easing up, so everyone crept out of the woodworks. Yeah,
everyone's going, you beauty. Yeah, bring it on.
But I did that paperwork, and I do have a point here, Charlie. I did that paperwork. It's all talking about all the awards that I've gone for.
Pump your tyres up, why don't
you? There was a question in there, and it was essentially, what is your business's business statement? And I didn't enroll as the bike shop or as the farm. I enrolled as Jake Wolki, and these are the different spinning plates I've got at the moment. But I had a real different story to tell from the farm's point of view. It wasn't just selling bikes to make money, buy it for X and sell it for Y and get on with it. Everything we do here is because I felt like I had to feed my family a certain thing, and I wanted to do it myself so that it wasn't greenwashed and there wasn't corners cut. I was becoming really passionate about animal welfare, and I wanted to see what that was like, and I wanted to see, what I could do in that space. And you read, all the people that run factory farms, they'll tell you their welfare is the best because they got full-time vets and, all this sort of back and forth. I thought I just want to get involved in that and actually see what's happening on the ground. And there's all these different steps. So over the course of the first probably year working on the farm with Mr. Michael, my farmhand I've referenced a few times, he's been full-time with me since the beginning, essentially. It became apparent that we needed a value structure for the business. Like one of our farms that we used to have pigs on, we don't at the moment because of the rain events we've had recently, but it's out of phone reception. So he'd go down there to move pigs and feed pigs. And if there was something wrong on the farm, he couldn't just call me to go, what do you want me to do? He had to be able to troubleshoot and have some autonomy and make decisions that he felt like was aligned with the company. And just through working with him on the farm, we never had a brainstorming session. There was no marketing meeting. We developed these 5 pillars of production, we call them. So the first one's our animal welfare. And like I've said, we believe that real welfare has to look at the natural expression of the animal, the context of where the animals come from, in the context of where the animal is now. So a pig wants wallows. That's their natural expression. Let's say they're omnivores. Where have they come from? They've come from forests in Europe and England. And where are they now? Well, they're on pasture in a paddock in Australia. So we need to look at all these things and try, and the answer is not a concrete shed. The answer is something a bit more nuanced than that. Our second pillar of production is our environmental backbone. We don't want the environment to pick up the tab. We don't want to have that externalized cost, and we don't want to be polluting the commons. And so it just became really apparent to us that if we got the animal welfare thing right in the context to that animal's natural expression, that the environment was fine by default. Like if you kept your animals moving, which for me, moving your cows all the time is an animal welfare thing because it prevents them from getting worms, right? So it's not actually, for me, I don't look at holistic plant grazing as an environmental thing first. I look at it as a welfare thing first. Oh, yeah. And it's a natural byproduct that the environment thrives because animals' environment are the same thing. Like you don't have healthy ecosystems without environments in them. So I just thought if you get welfare right, the environment's a no-brainer. And I call it our environmental backbone because sometimes you need to have a backbone and you need to go move the cows even though it's hailing outside or,
get that motivation to do it.
You can hear the fox in the chook shed and it's 1 a.m, but you just got to get up and deal with it, right? Yeah. So you got to grow a spine and do it. Our third pillar of production is we want to create healing foods for our community, for our families first, and then for our community and our consumers. And there's a pattern coming here because I believe if you get the welfare right and the environment right, your natural byproduct, your default product is your healing food because you're not using chemicals on your farm, you're not eroding soil, you've got animals that aren't stressed, you've got all the pieces coming together, so you've got great quality food for your family and your community. Step number 4 is build community. We're not isolationists, we're not preppers, we're not elitists. It's not about doing everything by ourselves. We want friends and family, and we want people for our kids to play with, and we want support networks. Like my father was just in hospital this week for the first time ever, and it's nice having phone calls from people and can we drop a meal, and we know your wife's really pregnant, how can we help out? Do you want us to look after the kids? Like, prepping and being an isolationist homestead is sort of a little bit romantic until something goes a little bit wrong, and then you wish you had your family and your friends around you. So number 4 is build community, and if you get the animals right, look after the environment, create good quality products, then people are going to want it and they're going to become interested. And we've attracted our community through radical transparency of opening our farm's gates and making it a public forum. And then step number 5, pillar number 5, Charlie, can you guess what it is?
Oh no, animals, environment, healing, building community. Is it self?
No, it's make a profit.
Oh, make the dollars. make it all stack up.
Yeah, that's right, because you can't do it without it. And so there are our 5 pillars, and I call them a flywheel because each of them feeds momentum into the next, and then when we make a profit, we grow the enterprise. We can up our chickens and heal more land with more chickens on it, whatever the case might be. So I wrote that on my application for the New South Wales Business Award for Young Business Leader for the Riverina, and I won that event. And it was a fun night. My wife and I went up to the Whitten Malt House. That's where they had the awards.
That's event. A local one, is it?
It's a few hours, a couple of hours away. It's up near Narrandera.
Oh, okay, yeah, right.
Cool, big, cool venue up there, and great night, and had a good time. But I don't know, it's been a really curious thing, I guess, looking back over my own journey over the last 10 years of going from thinking having a mission statement in the bike shop was just a massive toss, and I was like arrogantly proud about the fact we didn't have one, and I'm not like embarrassed about that. I think, what sort of mission statement does a bike have? Like, we never bought it to be some noble sort of. Yeah. It wasn't about that. Yeah. But the farm, I just feel like that's really telling in our journey, because the farm did grow out of value structures. It's not like we've started this farm and now we have to defend what we're doing. Like, we started this because we wanted to achieve those social things and create the healing food and build community. So I don't know, it's been a fun journey, but those 5 pillars just offer a lot of clarity to us when we need to make decisions. Does it tick these boxes?
No, I think that's fascinating, and it makes perfect sense that the animals health and their well-being, then if those boxes are getting ticked and their environment is appropriate for them, then their contribution to the environment is going to be positive. And you can't, as you say, you can't help a healthy animal is going to be, when it's cared for, is going to improve the environment, and it can't not be of high, nutritious density, because, it's going to be reasonably chemical free, if not totally chemical free. It's going to have had a diverse diet, and it's going to spend its life in a happy state, which always is good for meat quality. And community, that pillar, absolutely, because you need clients, and if they see your it's all about trust, isn't it? And how can you be as trustworthy as you are? It's because you, as you say, radical transparency. It's like, well, what's not to trust? And you got to turn it off.
We've really felt that saying that your friends won't become your customers, but your customers will become your friends.
Mm.
We've really found that to be true. We've been in the restaurant industry in Albury for quite a long time, because we had the fast food chicken shop for 25 years, even though that was sort of a previous life for my family. I was a little kid when that got closed down, running behind the counters, slip and sliding on the greasy floor. And then we've had this new cafe for, must be 2014, so 9 years now. And when we started producing food, we knew all these restaurateurs around town, and none of them wanted a bar of it. Like, everyone thinks, Jake got a leg into all these restaurant owners because he knew all the chefs. I didn't know them all. Not a single one of them has given me a shot based on the merits of our friendship and what we're trying to achieve. I've got a lot of restaurant accounts, but they've all been hard fought, and I've had better luck getting into kitchens that were operated by people that I didn't know at all, which I found was really interesting. And now I've struck up fantastic relationships with all these new people that were customers first. It's a really interesting situation.
Let's get back to human health. I'm interested with the success, or that's probably the wrong word, or the sort of the uptake or the interest in your previous events or the ones you've held. You've got more coming on. You've got the Quantum Health Summit.
Yep.
On 5th of November as well.
Yes.
Why has that taken on, much more, I guess, prominence by the look of things than previously? Is it because people are going, we want to know more about health? Are you going, is health becoming more of a thing that you're more conscious of, even though it was clearly a catalyst for what you're doing now? Why? Because you could just keep doing eggs and pork and beef and having a lovely time. Why is there a sense of responsibility to bring doctors on board and start joining the dots?
Well, I don't think it's a sense of necessarily responsibility for us, but the farm business is really an extension of our interests, like my wife and myself, and the journey that we're on. Like, our marketing plan is just documenting what we're doing and what we're going through. So when I have when I finally realised and cracked the code about how toxic all these seed oils are for us, and that you're far better off eating animal fats that we've been eating for thousands of years, I just thought that was amazing. So I just started posting that on our social media. That started going out on our mailing list to our EDMs. I started blogging about it, and I can't help but just live and breathe what I'm interested in, instead of forcing some contrived plan together. And my wife and I have just, we've experienced such great healing and health in our life through going towards an animal-based diet and cutting out all these processed foods, refined oils, all these things that so interesting to us. And our whole customer base is people that have had these same stories, and we're also engaged and passionate about it. So they just make for great events. They're big, they're real woo-woo. they're fun. So I don't know
how much woo-woo.
There's a bit like this Quantum Health one's going to be more woo-woo than any of the others, because it's all about light and magnetism, really. So we're getting pretty woo-woo. Talking about red light, I wear the red glasses normally, the red lens glasses of an evening, and you see people that might be wearing them on social media, and you can look at them and think, they're a bit crazy. And for sure, we are. But my whole thing is experiment on yourself. You know, you get on Twitter, like I know I reference social media a lot, but I spend a lot of time on social media, and that's our whole, that's the way of achieving radical transparency with our customers. There's vegan doctors that have PhDs on why veganism's the best diet, but then you've got carnivore doctors with PhDs, why carnivore diet's the best diet. So you could just get bogged down in reading studies for the rest of your life and fighting about it. So I'm not into it. I sound like a bit of a anti-sciencer, I guess, but I just don't care. Like I've done veganism for a little while and saw how I felt, and I felt no different to when I was eating whatever I was eating beforehand. And then I did a meat-based diet and I felt fantastic. And that's all I need to know. Like I don't need to read all these different things.
You ground truth that.
So when you do for us, when we did the light thing, I met a dentist out of Sydney, Dr. Jalal Khan. He's going to be presenting at our Quantum Health Summit. I met him at our Beef Initiative event, and he told me about, it was actually interesting, Charlie. It was at one of the private dinners that we did at like one of the dinner clubs at a restaurant that I met him. And
what's his name?
Jalal Khan, Jalal-Kahn. He's a great guy. He was talking to me. He said, "Jake, tell me about your beef." He sat across me and he had his red lenses on, and it was a low light environment at this nice restaurant. He said, "Tell me about your beef." And I said, "Oh, you know, I love my cows. I've got this African breed of cow called Nguni. I'm crossing them over pure blood Jersey cows, and I've got this real crazy breeding program that makes no sense to anyone except for me." And he said, "Do you love it?" I said, "I do love it, but you know what the biggest suck is that it just takes so long." I said, I'm a relatively young guy. I'm in my 30s. I've probably got 20, 25 generations of mucking around in my life before my time's up. And, I'd like to have more. And he just looked me straight in the eyes. He goes, "I can help you live another 10 years. I'm like, "Well, okay, tell me. You got me. Tell me." And he hands me his glasses, and I'm thinking, here we go, woo-woo. I'm living another 10 years because I'm wearing red lens glasses. But it was really interesting because he's peeled me on the light. So get out of your fluoros, your fake lights, start respecting daylight hours, so your circadian rhythm, protect yourself from these bad lights. And I lost 6 kilos in about 2 months without working out, without changing my diet.
Just because you started wearing those glasses?
I guess that's all I did.
Yeah.
I didn't change my diet. I didn't drink less. I didn't work out more. Like I eat pretty well. I work out a bit.
And that was in the evenings. That was your.
So what I started doing was getting up and watching the sunrise outside.
Yep.
Every morning. So we get up as a family. Our boys come outside with us. They actually wake us up. They're the ones that instigate it now. And then when it gets dark, if there's a TV on in the house, or if we've replaced all the lights in the house now. So our house is like the red light district. If you drive past it, it's a bit woo-woo.
So at night, when you would normally turn lights on because it's dark, you've actually got red globes.
Yep. Orange, amber.
Orange.
It's not as full on.
Yeah, right.
But I lost a bit of weight that I needed to shift. Started sleeping a bit better. My grandma went to go see Dr. Max, who we've spoken about, and she hasn't been able to sleep through a night for about 30 years without getting up and tossing and turning and just having a horrid night's sleep. And watching the sunrise and wearing blue blockers for 2 days, she slept through on the second night. First time in decades. So it's not about, for us, like I know, like I sound like a bit of a heretic, but I don't really care what the studies say or what doctors' opinions are. When it's your lived experience and you're not hurting anybody, like it's hard to think that you can be hurting yourself by watching the sunrise, right? I'm just really excited about it. And this is what my animals do. My animals get the sunrise and the sunset. They like it.
So I've started wearing them a month or two ago.
Mm-hmm.
And not religiously every night, because sometimes I just forget. I mean, it's just one of those things. But if I see it and go, "Oh shit, I'll put them back on," I reckon I'm getting better sleep.
Mm-hmm.
When there'll be a week when I forget to do it, and then there's a few days that I've actually got them on, and then I'll go. I reckon, and I should start taking a little diary of sleep versus spectacles on at night. My sense is there's a correlation. I reckon I've been sleeping better. And
I bet you something that this is something that everyone can notice, I think, is you realise how sensitive you are to fake light. Like once you've worn your blue blockers for a couple of weeks, if you walk inside of a shopping centre, it's a full-blown, like walk into Woolies, it's an assault. I've been visiting Dad in the hospital the last couple of days here. Horrible environment, just absolutely grotesque, all those fluoros. Just so challenging, not to mention, the sludge they feed them. Just, carbohydrates and sugar. That's all you get fed in hospital. It's hilarious.
Well, it's cheap.
Yeah.
It doesn't kill them while they're in hospital anyway. Maybe
when you're in there for something acute, it doesn't matter if you have a little bit of bread for breakfast, does it?
Now, Jake, I'm not conscious of the time. We're going to finish this up, and I've really enjoyed our chat. I love that we got a bit operational there and a bit, because I love just exploring, and the value in sharing your wins and lessons is invaluable. We're going to do a little Q&A now, just a quick one, 10 minutes. Can you do that?
Yeah, happily.
Do you need to slip off and grab your glasses to put on?
They're at home.
I can even bring mine down from home, actually. And we'll have a little stretch. We'll do a 10-minute Q&A, pretty standard couple of questions to answer. And for those who want to access that Q&A, you'll have to just join up to our Patreon membership, our lovely Patreon community, to listen.
I hope it's
$10 a month.
I hope it's worth it.
Well, look, if yours isn't worth it, there's a whole lot of other good stuff in there that may well be worth it. So for $10 a month, you'll get transcriptions of interviews and a monthly webinar with one of our guests at least each month, and a bit of video content from me as well, and a few other things. So, Jake, that's been fantastic. I've been lining you up for some time now. Finally got down here. We had a false start or two, didn't we? I think a little while ago, a month or two ago. But nearly had another one today. But all good. Fascinating to see what you're doing here. I can now put it into context because social media doesn't do it justice, just because you don't quite get the nuance and everything. But it's fantastic to be here. And thanks again. And we'll check in 3 minutes. You up for that?
Yeah, Can
you do it? You're probably just warming up.
Yeah, I'm ready.
It is getting cool, but he's just warming up.
It's getting cool, yeah.
Jake, awesome. Thanks, mate. And next week on The Regenerative Journey, our guest is Max Culhane, Dr. Max Culhane. I interviewed him back-to-back with Jake, who you just listened to right now, down there in Albury. He's doing, I don't know if it's called an internship, but he's certainly doing some time down there with another local doctor who's just, all over paleo, carnivore, good nutritious food, lots of other really interesting, just healthy habits, like, how much light you're getting in the day and cutting out blue light, all sorts of really good, solid, sound, simple health practices that can get you living a much better life. So Max is next week on The Regenerative Journey.
This podcast is produced by Rhys Jones at Jaeger Media. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe, share, rate and review. For more episode information, please head over to www.charliearnott.com.au.